Today I'm going to go over my draft for the first season of the WPF Delta Division. WPF is one of the largest draft league communities on Discord with multiple showdown divisions, but this is their first time ever running a Wi-Fi division. With the recent release of Pokemon Home, we received over 100 new Pokemon to play with. Some old faces, but more exciting, some Pokemon we have never seen in Draft League before. I was actually given the first pick of the draft, meaning I could have picked anything I wanted. After thinking long and hard,
that's what she said.
I decided to pick up the king of Gen 8 Draft League. Well, one of the kings. Urshifu Single Strike. Urshifu was very often banned last generation, and it only got better this gen in my opinion. With access to Sword Stance and Trailblaze now, sweeping is much easier. The lack of good fairy types also means teams will have less good switch-ins to this big bear. It is true that its signature move, Wicked Blow, was nerfed from 80 base power to 75 base power, but honestly, that's not too big of a change. Unfortunately though, this thing is Terra banned, but I reckoned even without Terra, it's going to be able to destroy anything in its path. With us being the very first pick, from now on we will be able to pick 2 Pokemon together for the rest of this draft, also known as the wheel pick. This means unfortunately we also have to wait 30 picks until we can pick again. With this in mind, and with the lack of good steel and good fairy types in the format right now, I wanted to get these 2 types in as soon as possible. So with this wheel pick, we got Gholdengo and Azumarill. Gholdengo has an incredible typing and has been a top tier mon since its release. It also has some very respectable bulk and is capable of either setting up or just clicking a button and killing something. Its ability is also unique in the sense that it blocks status moves, not only Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, or Corrosion Toxic, but it also ignores things like Defog, Encore, or even Roar. After using Azumarill in the BBRD League and absolutely falling in love with it, I just had to use it again. It is, in my opinion, the best fairy and the best water type simultaneously, so it felt like a no-brainer. It is capable of checking a lot of the top tier threats, especially because they are unable to Terra, so stuff like Qianpao, Chi-Yu, and Dragapult, Azumarill should be able to deal with quite comfortably. Despite these defensive capabilities, Azumarill is also an incredible offensive Pokemon, and it can just break stuff with Choice Band, or it can set up and sweep with Belly Drum. Going into round 4, I needed some speed as none of my current Pokemon break the 100 speed tier. So we decided to pick up Noivern. Noivern has an impressive 123 base speed and has a plethora of utility moves that I absolutely love. Stuff like Super Fang and U-Turn and Defog and Roost and so much more. It also hits deceptively hard because despite only having 97 base special attack, it has very high base power stab moves like Hurricane and Draco Meteor, so I'm very excited for Noivern. At this point, I realized my draft had a problem. I didn't have any Hisuian Pokemon yet, and I absolutely wanted to pick up a couple. So I decided to pick up one of the Hisuian Pokemon that I am most excited to use, and that is Hisuian Arcanine. Rockhead with Stab, Head Smash, and Stab Flare Blitz is just absolutely insane. You slap a Choice Band on that bad boy and not many things are going to be able to switch in. I also decided to make it my Terra Captain because it does have a very poor defensive typing, but with Terra, I can choose a typing that is much better, and therefore it also allows me to have extra coverage for things that I might not be able to hit as hard. It still has Intimidate and Flash Fire too, so we're not only going to be running Rock headsets. With these first 5 Pokemon, our team is looking incredibly offensive, so I wanted to pick up some reliable bulk, and these 2 Pokemon do exactly that. We picked up Wo-Chien and Gastrodon. Now, Wo-Chien, I'm going to say it like that every time I mention its name. Wo-Chien actually has a lot of utility options as well, with stuff like Knockoff and Ruination and Leech Seed and Stun Spore and all these crazy moves that I absolutely love. So it's not only going to be a sitting duck. The ground resist is also very helpful for my team right now because only Noivern is able to switch into Earthquakes, and that's not the most reliable switch in. Gastrodon is an interesting pick for me. First of all, yes, it's a second water type for my team, but I've actually learned and started to really like having 2 water types, one more offensive and one more defensive. It also gives me a ground type that I did not have until the moment, so Volt Switch isn't super free against me. But perhaps the biggest thing that Gastrodon actually offers my team is hazard support. At the moment, we only really had Arcanine with Stealth Rocks, and I want to be able to click buttons with that Pokemon, not Stealth Rocks, so Gastrodon gives me Stealth Rocks and Spikes. It did lose a few things with Scald and Toxic, but Stealth Rock and Spikes are also very good moves and very good support options for my team. From here until the end, it's just a matter of trying to wrap up my draft in the best way possible and fill a few holes that I might still have on the team. A grounded poison type is actually something I think every team should look to draft, because otherwise toxic spikes can become a very big problem for your team. Realistically, at this point, there aren't really many good options, but I was very much intrigued by one option in particular, and that Pokemon is Grafaiai. It has 3 very good abilities, but Prankster is probably the best one. Grafaiai has support options like the Parting Shot, like Encore, like Toxic. If I can go ahead and get a Prankster Parting Shot out and then bring in one of my big boys to set up or potentially just kill something, we might be in business. Doesn't have the best offensive stats, but it does get Swords Dance and Nasty Plot, so you never know. Our next pick was Hisuian Braviary because, well, I only had one Hisuian Pokemon on my team. It does give me a Psychic type, which I didn't have on the team yet, but the main reason I picked this thing is because it hits extremely hard with Sheer Force Life Orb sets or with just Tinted Lens, which effectively means it doesn't really have any resist. It has decent coverage and it has a good move in Esper Wing, which is going to be able to boost its speed. So Hisuian Braviary could be a very sleeper. My last 2 picks are the most questionable picks of the draft. Let's go ahead and put it like that. So I actually wanted to pick up Electros because I did want another like bulkier pivot, another ground immunity would have been quite nice for my team, but unfortunately it got picked before I could get to it. So I decided to pick up Regieleki. Now, Regieleki might suck because it cannot terrestrialize, which is obviously a huge hindrance for it, but it still is going to force people to bring their ground types against me. And when I have 2 water types and I have something like Wo-Chien, they might not want to bring their ground type necessarily. Alongside that, Regieleki also gives me a Rapid Spin, which is a pretty good thing to have, especially because there aren't a lot of ghost types that are going to want to switch into Regieleki and take that Thunderbolt, so it might be able to get a spin off quite easily. It at least has an 80 base power move to be able to hit ground types now with Terra Blast, so it's not completely useless, but I admit, it's still less than ideal. It is super fast though, so it might be able to do something. And then for 1 point, we actually picked up something that I think has value in 1 point, and that is Glimmet. Glimmet's going to offer me more hazard options. It's going to offer me T-Spikes that I didn't have up until this point. And for 1 point, it might come occasionally as like a suicide hazard setter lead if I want to take a more hyper offensive approach to the game. So I still expect people to respect my 1 point Glimmet, and I might be able to bring it once or twice. Who knows? And that's it for our draft. Let me know if you have any suggestions for nicknames for any of these Pokemon. Let me know what you think about the team as well. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing. I'll see you all for week 1 going up Friday.